There's another WoW interview with the classic developers. Where can I find this?
This is my recording, but I'm just doing it on stream.
Oh my gosh, that's such a cute shirt. Thank you.
And I think Blizzard has relaxed a lot of this stuff in the recent years. I unironically think that after Blizzard went through all of like the sexual harassment allegations and everything, they kind of just gave up trying to be super PR friendly and trying to be super conservative with their PR, and they were just like, yeah, fuck it. Yeah, I mean, we'll just let them, like, yeah, they want to stream the interview, yeah, just let them stream it. Whatever, who cares? And by the way, that's been great. It's been absolutely tremendous.
Lich King is a mythic boss. Right?
Yeah,
Straight.
that was the next question. Are you there's like 80 guilds that have killed him? Are you guys happy with that? Did you expect that, or were you kind of like, damn, I thought more would kill it by now?
There's only 80 guilds that have killed the Lich King, and like whenever he's talking about the Lich King, I'm assuming he means the Lich King on 25-man heroic, right?
We're worried that it would just get blasted through because of how, just players are just better, right? But for the most part,
yeah,
we're pretty happy with it.
It's nice for people to have to kind of earn that, the joy of having accomplished something. So I like it personally. Yeah.
That's good. Are you allowed to say anything about Ruby Sanctum, or not, when it's going to come at least, or something?
Yeah.
It'll be early next year.
Yeah.
We're just going to very soon into 2024.
What about the ICC buffs?
See, this is what I've said before, is it's very refreshing that Blizzard just like, there's not a political answer or anything. They're like, when's ICC, Ruby Sanctum? I don't know, like beginning of next year, like, we'll see what happens, right? It's very casual. It's not like weird or anything like that.
TBD. So this is a tough thing. We want to wait until guilds, like there's a lot of guilds that really want to prog this as it was, right? And we learned a lot of good lessons from Serpent Shrine Cavern and stuff, where we kind of tried to like pull that nerf in a little bit too soon, and that really kind of upset some people. And it's like, so we're just gonna kind of we're waiting for people to tell us that they're ready for it a little bit. There's probably a period of time where like, okay, we just need to do it. But at the same point, like we don't want to rush it. So no specific time frame.
I like it.
Sure.
Would you guys ever? Because there's people that they love Lich King. They love TBC Lich King. They don't want to play Cata, or they don't want to. Have you ever talked about talked about the TBC or an era version of him, kind of for Lich King or TBC, kind of like how there is with Season, for people that want to just stay
that's
in
a really
that
good question.
Lich King or TBC?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
We've talked about, we don't have plans of doing, but again, it's one of those things that we continue to listen to player feedback and kind of go based on what the community is asking for.
Yeah, it'll be really.
I feel like it gets to a point where like now you have you have Classic Era, Classic Plus, the Season of Discovery, Cataclysm, and Retail WoW. You have 4 different versions of WoW, and people want to have 5 and 6 with like Era TBC and Era Wrath. That's a lot to ask for. And Hardcore WoW. Yeah, so now we're at 7 then.
To kind of read some commentary after this. I haven't really had a chance to read forums really on social media. We've just been a kind of a whirlwind, but it's something.
People are saying the volume is low. Is the volume low? I feel like I turned it up.
Never say never. Like it's not something we have.
I turned it all the way up now.
Cards right now, but we could someday maybe.
Okay. Well, with Cata, what are you the most excited about then? What are you excited to see, do, feel, or let us, or what are you excited to have us react to? You know what I mean?
I think for me personally, I'm excited to see us carrying over the new dungeon difficulties, similar to Titan Rune dungeons, over into Cataclysm.
Yeah, sure.
I think those were a huge hit. We've learned a lot, like Josh said, we've learned a lot through that, sort of letting players earn that power and then blast through, right? And basically making it easier for folks to catch them earlier as well as the expansion progresses. Another thing too is we're making adjustments to the length of our patch cadence basically, and how long a raid tier has been released. We don't want folks to kind of, get through a raid, continue to clear it, and have it kind of drag on. And so we do plan on kind of speeding things up a little bit there.
Yeah, we've talked about this in a couple of other interviews.
I think that's probably true, because that's usually, I bet what they found out is that people that do that don't come back. It's like you can keep people on the treadmill, but after they come off the treadmill, then they leave.
I think it's really interesting to see what people think of Cataclysm with that faster cadence, because this is sort of an assumption, but I think it's a fair assumption that a lot of the reason that Cataclysm was divisive was because of the cadence. It was, especially Dragon Soul.
That's the main complaint is how long Dragon Soul was.
You know what I mean? Like, you can only do Spine of Deathwing so many times, right? The benefit of Classic is that we're obviously making adjustments, making changes and stuff.
Is that good?
We're not building the content. And so that's really the lag time for that's what dictates how long it is before another patch can come, is like building the content. Well, it's already built for the most part.
Okay. Just time out anybody else talks about the volume. I fucking hate that.
Agency and how fast to do that. And we're
so annoying.
I'm really curious to see if sort of like a lot of people who are maybe like kind of never catas, you know, like turn a corner on it.
I think they are. I think they will.
Yeah. I know a bunch of people that a couple of years ago, like my guild, like they're like, I'm done it, right, at Lich King. But they're all just like, oh, you know, actually, you know, this is pretty good.
Now that it's here,
like, we're all still together. Let's just keep the party rolling. So it's like, I think that's cool.
I think that's one of the cool things of working on Classic is as we release, you know, as we work on our progression servers. It's one of those things that like we can sort of reimagine these experiences and make adjustments where it makes sense for a modern audience. You know.
Yeah, totally. But objectively, the content I'm looking forward to the most is Firelands.
Yeah, me too.
I love Firelands.
Yeah,
like,
I love it.
It's a banger. It's one of my favorites.
I liked Firelands, but I actually thought Tier 11 was better. That's the tier with like all 3 of the raids. I liked going to all 3 of the raids and getting different stuff from each one of them. I thought Tier 11 was a great raid tier, even though it was so hard.
It's like, I think it's the best raid ever in the world.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
Karazhan was my favorite for a while, but now that I think it's Firelands.
The funny thing about Firelands too is I had kind of just gotten I changed positions at Blizzard when it came out, and I was working a night shift, so I couldn't do heroic. I did heroic later, but I didn't do it when it was current. So I'm super jazzed. I did some of it when it was current, but I didn't do all of it. I never killed Ragnaros when it was current. So
see, y'all might not remember, but like Ragnaros, like there was a bigger difference between like a guild that was 6 of 7 heroic and a guild that had killed heroic Ragnaros. Like that difference was bigger than a guild that was like on normal mode Ragnaros and hadn't even done heroic. Like Ragnaros was such a massive step up in difficulty, it was fucking insane. It was like a 20-minute dick grinder. It was brutal. Sinestro was easy compared to Ragnaros. Ragnaros was on a totally different level.
Yeah, to go back and actually do that this time.
Does how the lockouts work with the 10 man and 25 man sharing a lockout and then same eye level loot? Are you guys gonna mess with that at all? Or are you thinking about keeping that the same?
I mean, probably not. Like, well, I think it's likely that we'll make some adjustments. I don't know. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't want to make a promise, honestly. Yeah. I think we're still going to probably just be evaluating that. Like, one of the problems, or one of the challenges, let's say, with Cataclysm was that, there wasn't a very good incentive to be in a 25-player guild when you could kind of just go do the same thing in 10. But on the same note, some encounters are way harder on 10 heroic, like super hard. And others
this is like a huge issue that Cataclysm had, and this is why they kind of moved back into making everything on 10 or just on 20 man in WoD, is because some of the fights were a joke on 10 man and some of the fights were a joke on 25 man, and it depended on your comp and it depended on a couple of other things too.
Are a lot easier. So I think that might be kind of a differentiator that might keep people in that 25 player, and also like. If it depends on your guild too. We really like the idea of being flexible. That if you do have a smaller guild, letting you kind of keep rolling with that smaller guild seems to make sense. And what you want to talk about guild improvements too.
So we do plan on making some adjustments to the guild progression system because initially when Cata launched back in the day, the guild rewards very much rewarded big mega guilds, and so what I saw personally, and I think what a lot of other people saw, was their cute little mom and pop type guilds ended up kind of dispersing as we were like, hey, really want to collect those sweet rewards, and we went and joined mega guilds, and they got kind of large and wieldy when the purpose of people.
I think what they should do is they should remove. So the reason why everybody was in these mega guilds is because they had a perk that would give all of the gold that you looted to the guild bank, or not all of it, but like a percentage of it. So everybody wanted to invite as many players as possible into a guild so they could get as much cash flow into the guild bank as possible. And the perks obviously weren't really an issue because you would be able to unlock those over time. I think having some perks for being in a guild is a good thing, but I think having guild achievements that are kind of a separate thing completely is probably the best example. That's the best thing to have. So as long as they remove the cash flow thing, I think that you're not going to have that big of a problem with those guilds.
People like getting together.
It was mainly because of the cash flow.
Rewards, like it got a little bit like cold and impersonal.
Or on the other side of it too, like my guild eventually broke up, but we kept inviting just randoms just to get more bodies, and that diluted the culture a little bit. And so that's like, we just want to steer away from that. So we really want to enable those mom and pop guilds to continue to exist or start to exist. But we're just going to have to really take a look at the reward structure. What we did in next Ramus, whenever we went and added the 25 player league to 10 man, is we made the 25 player version drop an extra item.
Yeah,
so
sure.
that might be something that's on in the cards to make it a little bit more incentive to actually do a larger raid size.
But you'd keep the eye level pretty much the same.
Oh, yeah. I don't think
I don't think they should change it from 10 and 25 man, but they should probably rebalance a couple of the encounters that are like the extremes. Like, you probably just go back and look at the data from back then that was available and see like, okay, well, only 5 guilds out of the 50 guilds that attempted Heroic Cho'Gall on 25 man killed it, but like 10 out of the 200 did it on 10 man or 25 man, whatever, right? And like, that's what they should do more so. Is just try to maybe nerf and buff it a little bit so there's a bit more parity.
Adjustments there, but honestly, it could still change. We're still kind of evaluating.
Heroic Alakir? Yeah, Heroic Alakir.
What about the talent structure? I know one.
Heroic Alakir was so bad that the world first kill for Heroic Alakir required like 10 people to just not even be there for the fight for the first phase. Because the first phase was so damage intensive and mana was so hard to come by, and you had so much proximity damage that they just had a bunch of people just sitting there waiting to be part of the fight in phase 2 that started like, I think, 80%, right? And so, yeah, I think they should fix some of that stuff, for sure.
The point was you're locked into one, like you can't hybrid. It took out the ability to go hybrid, where you needed to get that last point in order to get into a next tree.
The thing about talents that's funny is we really strongly considered like a major talent overhaul.
Ooh.
But actually, by the end of Cataclysm had a ride, right, of class talents and class design. But by the end of it, for the most part, a lot of classes ended up in a very good place. And so there's a risk of doing more damage than good.
Yeah, I play Warlock, so I'm happy.
Yeah, exactly. Paladins, honestly, all my main classes are really good by the end of it.
Well, that's the best thing about Cata is a lot of classes are good. It's not like warriors only.
Yeah.
Cataclysm has pretty good parity, if I remember right.
Classic, or warlocks and hunters and TBC. This is like a big broad. Like, people ask me all the time what's good, and I'm in like 6 classes. I'm like, they're just.
So it's kind of like we have like a weird situation where it's like the system itself is like, maybe if we could change it, we could, but it's like we don't want to do damage to what works, right? So I think a lot of what we're going to do, like, we made very tactical changes to classes in Wrath, and we learned some lessons there too. But I think we're going to look at it and try and make as few sort of tactical adjustments as possible. But any kind of major system overhaul, probably not.
I think that's probably a good idea. I wouldn't consider removing the gold return from the guilds a big system overhaul. But, like, they shouldn't be afraid to make all change or, like, no changes. They should make at least some. But, yeah, people want to play Classic because they want to play the old game.
Don't want to do more harm.
Yeah, it makes sense. This is super random, but, you know how ZA and ZG is phase 2 would be like a phase 2? Because in the beginning, would you ever, like, just...
I think the way we're going to handle ZA and ZG, I don't know if we've talked about this, but we're doing it, I guess. I think what we're doing with ZA and ZG is we'll probably do it like an interstitial,
in between,
like half phase. Like, we might not do a full patch for
it.
Okay,
but there will be like, the launch and then, Bastion and Twilight, all those raids and stuff. And then
ZA and ZG were like really good catch-up gear because like a lot of the gear from ZA and ZG, I think the item level for it was 353. And like the item level of the baseline heroic gear before then was only 346. So you were able to get to 353, and then also the gear from the raids, actually the actual raids, was 359. So it was only 6 item levels under. It was basically a catch-up raid. I mean, ironically, ZG and ZA were catch-up dungeons, and they used to be catch-up raids. The same thing happened.
Midpoint between that and Firelands, we'll just release
Heroic
that.
was 372.
That's what was big.
Except for
That was like a
Sinestra,
whole
which was
phase.
379.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be a whole phase.
Oh, I know.
No. But like,
That's
I was
good. A
there.
lot of people are gonna like that.
we're spacing it out by raid tier, for
that's
sure.
good.
But that would be like a thing, right?
You mentioned so for hardcore, you said SSF's coming.
Yeah.
That's gonna be cool. Is
Well,
It's
SF.
SF?
Yeah.
Okay, true.
We're
Is it
staying away from the solo.
Yeah.
like on the same server, or is it gonna be a different server? Or are we gonna be playing like with the people we're playing with now?
Same server, so it'll be basically on character creation. It'll be a checkbox, a button for you to press that will basically enable.
This is for
self-download
classic?
for that character.
That's dope.
So from character creation,
Yeah.
you're entering the world with your restrictions: mailbox, trading, auction house, and at any point you can remove those restrictions if you're like, hey, this isn't for me. But
Yeah.
you can't re-enable it, obviously. So
Wait, you can take it off at some point?
you can.
Like you
can.
just
That's fine.
But the way it'll work is you'll never be like shit, never be able to put it back, and it's gonna key off of this Soul of Iron system. That,
Yeah.
there's like the badges and the buff.
An icon.
And if you ever take it off, then you just lose it. But if you get to 60, you get a little badge up there that says I made it to 60.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
And we're investigating some things.
That's cool. I like that. I do think that this is not for the people that think that this is like people can still group and then have people pass on loot and funnel them gear, right? So like it's not like this is going to totally stop the amount of for example, if we did a Mont Garra tournament, I'm not sure if we would just do solo self-found or not, because the truth of that is that solo self-found doesn't stop mob tagging. It doesn't stop people grouping with you, or actually, I guess it doesn't stop people, doing a dungeon with you and then passing on the loot. It's not solo self-found. Yeah, it's just self-found. Sorry, I that's why I confused myself there. So yeah, it's not going to get rid of all of that stuff, but it does get rid of like 90% of it.
To make it a little bit more interesting. I don't
I'm gonna
wanna
say no
too much
trades.
right
No,
now.
but like
We're gonna
if
talk
an
about
item
more
drops,
next
you
probably
pass
2
on
weeks
it. You're
and
effectively
months,
trading it.
as we get closer to the launch, but we got
That's what I'm saying.
little hidden tricks up our sleeve to make.
That's
sort of
exciting. Yeah.
self-found a little bit
A lot of us are we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure.
How about that in the Mont Garra tournament? You guys like that? Was that magical to watch?
Hell of a thing. It was incredible.
Do you guys plan to do any
Wow.
like events, or are you kind of leaving it up to the community like that? I know you sponsor.
nice.
I know you guys are partnered with them.
Yeah.
How
You know,
nice.
And I think we're open. I mean, this is kind of actually outside of our department as the developers.
No.
We don't do event planning or anything. But like, I know that for my part, I would love to see more of that thing, more partnerships like that. So I'm hoping we can do more. I'm hoping the community wants to do more, wants to see more. I think we probably have a pretty good idea that they do. It was the most watched WoW event ever.
That was crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
It was. Holy shit. Oh, how about that? There it is, boys.
And it was super entertaining. Just like I was flying around on a GM account watching it, and it was great. It was awesome to
I
watch.
was sure
Fuck
my
yeah.
work duties watching this stream.
Yeah, we all were. No one got work done that day. It was wild.
That's awesome.
One more
Wow.
about hardcore is: would you ever, or have you guys talked about a fresh, like having a new fresh on it, or is it like going to be that server for, whenever?
Not really something we've considered doing.
I wish they would do a fresh server for Classic. Personally. Like, once they nail down more of the Season of Discovery stuff, I would love to see a fresh server that starts on Phase 1 for Classic. Where it goes through the opening of the gates of AQ and, like these other, like, little miniature events that they have, like Zul Garub, the opening of Nax Ramas, all of that stuff. I would love to see that. I don't think they need that for hardcore because it just becomes... I don't know. I just don't really think that's the right option for hardcore, but I think for just a baseline server, absolutely.
Again, with the never say never thing,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
For the most part, we think it's not quite as impactful as, say, just any other classic fresh server.
Yeah, it's also too. We don't like there's people who played classic WoW for a while. There's
Yeah.
always a call for fresh.
That was my next question.
And it's
Yeah.
one of those things that it's like we don't want to get in the habit of kind of almost setting an expectation that we're going to let us
Every 6 months.
and then
Yeah.
basically intentionally
I think you have to do it
making
fresh. Yeah.
And so it's like people like persistence too. There's a contingent that's like I just love the first 3 months of a server, right?
Yeah.
And I think for those folks, like there's a little bit of a distance makes the heart grow fonder thing. Where it's like if we do it every 3 or 4 months, then
They won't
at
care.
a certain point it's gonna.
He's right.
It's probably gonna get a little. Stale,
He's very right.
So it's like
True.
Let's let it breathe for a minute. Let it see
True,
where
true,
it
true.
goes. We're gonna. It's gonna be interesting to see kind of the impact that injecting self-found into
Mm-hmm.
the mix has. And like I said, we got a couple little surprises for that we might,
That's
talk about
exciting.
soon. So
Oh, yeah.
we'll see what that goes.
How about LFR and Cata? Are you gonna let it in?
Ooh.
And what was the talks on LFR?
That's kind of something we're still discussing internally because, we're aware of there being a potential for the dynamic where players kind of just queue for LFR and it maybe deteriorates some of that, community feel of having to be part of a guild, a part of a group, core group to experience that content. But we are still actively discussing it behind closed doors.
Here's the problem with LFR. It's because LFR was way easier than Firelands. You could do LFR with no effort, and you would get gear that was better than Firelands. Because LFR gear was 384. And I think the Spine of Deathwing and... Yeah, the Spine of Deathwing and the Madness of Deathwing loot in LFR was 390. And if you compare that to Firelands, well, Firelands Heroic was 391. 410? No, it wasn't. No, I'm right. You're wrong. It was 391, and I think that Heroic Ragnaros loot was 397. 410 was Heroic Dragon Soul. Guys, you guys just fucking stop. Dragon Soul normal mode loot was what was it? I think it was 4-6. No, sorry, Dragon Soul. The hard mode gear from Heroic Deathwing was 416. It was 416, guys. It's not 421 or whatever.
We do
That was on Heroic,
feedback from the
not
community.
LFR.
And, what do players want? What do they want to see out of Cataclysm?
Yeah, I think after Wrath and we like learning lessons, right? And Wrath, we kind of
Certain items were higher than others. No, they weren't. It was based off of the bosses. The last 2 bosses, every item they dropped was that item level. You're wrong. I was there 3,000 years ago. 397 was regular 25-man, exactly, and 403 was normal mode for Spine of Deathwing and for Madness of Deathwing. I remember. Who gives a fuck about the item level? The point is that the Cataclysm, the Cataclysm Dragon Soul gear invalidated everything else in the game. It made it to where you never had to do tier 11 and you never had to do tier 12, and that's the bad thing. Like, LFR was problematic for that prime reason, that the gear was so strong that it invalidated everything else. You see kind of what I'm saying here?
into it sort of with the assumption that
It helps you skip content.
Would not want
exactly.
Random Dungeon Finder, and that was wrong. That was just wrong. And
Well, I don't think that people wanted Random Dungeon Finder. I think the problem was that people were on servers that were low population, and those low population servers prevented them from being able to play the game properly. So Random Dungeon Finder, I felt like, was a solution to a problem that Blizzard created. But it wasn't the correct solution. Of course, everybody always wants Random Dungeon Finder, right? Sure. But the solution in my mind was to not have Random Dungeon Finder and just have servers connected so people can actually find groups themselves. Because that works with Mythic Plus right now in retail. What's the problem with that? Yeah, fix the realms. The realms are the problem, not the Dungeon Finder.
And we don't want to get into a situation where we dig in on it, right? And then people start screaming at us for it, and it's like then we have to like like really, it's also like from a production perspective, I kind of in charge of schedules for the team, right? I don't want to have to shoehorn in a feature later that I didn't plan for. So it's one of those things that we're not closing the door on it, but I think that we probably prefer not to, for the reasons that Mark said.
LFRs for casuals and bads.
That ever flirted with?
That we probably prefer not to.
I remember we had a rule in LFR, and it was the worst player would get the weapon from Deathwing. And so one time, I was on my Death Knight, and I hit the first tentacle of the Madness of Deathwing, and I jumped off the edge and killed myself. I looted the sword. I had Girthlak. I used it for the entire expansion.
For the reasons that Mark said.
What about some like solo queue stuff or PvPs? That ever flirted with? I feel like I should have more PvP questions. I'm just a PvE Andy, so I just like solo queues. I hear people talk about that.
That's good.
Not quite. Like I would say it's on the periphery of our radar. If that makes sense. We're like,
sure.
There's nothing on the books right now, you know. I think if there were suddenly like an influx of people that were like, actually, you know, that would be great. I'm so glad you asked that question. You know, we do want to see something like that. Then, you know, we would I think spend a lot more time, you know, discussing it, thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, we put out like a survey. We put out a couple of surveys about Cataclysm, and one of those things we get from that, we kind of look at the data, and it's like very impressive data models that we can use to like really gauge. Kind of like popularity of one feature over another. That was one of those things that was kind of like middling. Like we had a question about that on there, and it was like sort of middle of the pack. So it's one of those things that I think we have in the back of our head.
I think PvP just isn't really that important, to be honest. Like, I'm not really a PvPer, but I feel like a lot of people don't really give a shit about PvP in like Classic or anything. Like, you want to hear about good PvP? Vanilla WoW. Because it was broken and stupid. Just like MMO PvP is supposed to be. I feel like PvP in MMOs is always stupid somehow. It's either unbalanced or unfun.
But I think there's definitely some things we need to work out. I mean, even Modern WoW has some challenges with that, right? And it's an incredibly fun mode, but like this is a good opportunity too for us to kind of partner up with Modern. And if we were going to do something like that, we'd really want to take some cues from them and learn from them.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
And so things like that. So I mean, I'm kind of using a lot of words to say the same thing Nora said, that like never say never, but it is not really.
Okay, well, Classic Plus, or I guess Seasons of Discovery.
Yeah, sure.
I think the biggest question change. I've done the demo so many times now, but that is
speed running it?
Yeah, we sped around it. We did. Yeah, you know we did. Where'd the rune idea come from? The rune system. What like
the runes? Oh
yeah. I guess let's start that. Where'd that come from? What was the idea of that?
I feel like I'm hogging the mic here. Do you want to try and take a stab at this?
I think it was more of a group effort.
Yeah,
a little bit.
really.
I was about to start throwing out names, and I was like, I shouldn't do that. But I really do think, like, in general, we got together as a team. There was lots of brainstorming. There was lots of like, what should this system look like? How do we want players to interact with these abilities, these class changing abilities, right? Do we want them to be like hot swappable, like you can just change them at any time, learn them like a book of spells, you know what I mean? Like, or do we want them to be like on use, it's used up or something like that? And we went basically the spells.
I'm glad that they didn't go with the on use, it's used up. I hate shit like that.
Right, so you can at any time swap your abilities out, come up with some interesting builds. We decided to add quite a few runes, you know, like 12 runes
there's
per
a lot.
Class, in the...
It started out with way more too before we kind of trimmed down.
Is it 12 per class period, or is there going to be more?
Just in the 1 to 25. It's
Okay,
12.
so like what I saw in my Warlock, for example, those are my runes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So an example of like my Metamorphosis rune was in my glove slot. Is that always going to be the glove slot, or can you put the rune in your pants slot? Or
No, that will go.
It'll be the glove slot. Okay.
Well,
I mean, unless some like rebalance happens.
I think they do that for the... I feel like the reason why they did this is Diablo 4, because this is effectively the aspect system in Diablo 4. Because like you can only put certain aspects on certain pieces of gear. It's pretty much the same thing, except for you have your codex learned.
Yeah.
Point, which we would try really hard to avoid that. So the plan is for that to be done.
Which is like, that's
To kind
fine.
of build on that, like a little bit of deep lore for sort of the season is we have been talking about sort of the general idea of this season since literally WoW Classic Beta, the 2019.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Like, I remember being in a room with folks and we had like we're watching on. It was before the pandemic and we're together in the classic pit, you know, the bullpen or whatever. And we had it on TV. We're watching like I think it was a dueling thing that S-Fan was doing in his guild or whatever. And it was so fun to watch them just pull all the stops out and just wacky combinations of items and talents at level 30.
Well, wait. Was that the tournament that maybe we had done back in the day? Holy shit. Do you remember that? Oh my god. Yeah, the level 30 tournament. Jesus, that was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Whatever. And it was just so fun to watch. And we really loved that. And so when we kind of started working backwards from that idea, it was after Season of Mastery came out, we're like, what would we want to do next? We knew we wanted to do something a lot deeper than Season of Mastery. And when we started kind of working backwards from that idea, it was like, well, it would be really cool to have these level breaks, but what are you going to do during that? And one of the things is like, what if like there was like kind of like almost Easter egg hunts like kind of thing where, and at the time the idea was actually like, hey, why don't we just make these like new class abilities and stuff item set bonuses or something? And it's like, that's cool, but it's like, what if they don't drop? Like, what if, you know, there's a lot of things with that, like, that kind of gatekeep some of the coolest stuff that you'd want to do behind, like, you got to get lucky or you got to spend a bunch of gold or whatever. And so that's like, well, why don't we just have the runes be something that's discoverable, like, as those discoveries? And so
it's just, I think it's like aspects in Diablo 4.
But it's almost something we've been talking about for so many years now. It's sort of evolved that, you know, once we actually started working on it, we had a pretty good idea of kind of think what we wanted to do.
It's the same also like, you know, like PoE, where you have to discover the recipes, and there's some recipes you only get from like Delve, or you only get from Incursion, or something like that. Yeah, I think this is cool.
We just kind of barreled forward.
Yeah.
And the thing I said in the panel, being excited for players to
Betrayal.
venture forth and discover them on their own. Like, I mean that because some of them are actually quite funny.
Are they going to be harder to find? Or is it, like, can you give an example of what it's like finding? Like, is it like you went to a Goldshire Inn and there's like a box and it's there or something?
Some of them are that simple. Go ahead.
Well, someone else asked us, like, are these all just like quests or something?
I'm expecting that a lot of the class defining and class changing ones are probably going to be easy to get. Because I don't think they want people to go for, like, let's say 25 levels or 40 levels and not be able to get, like, the Warlock Metamorphosis one, for example. Yeah, like the tank ones, I feel like you're going to be able to get those really early, and then the other ones you probably will have to wait longer for. Yeah, Crusader Strikes, yeah, you get Crusader Strike. Maybe a little bit later for that, but, like, especially the tanking ones, I think, or the healing ones for mages, I think those are going to be pretty early and pretty easy to get.
And I was like, maybe some of them are newly added quests that weren't there before in the game. However, most of them are things like, I've discovered this object in the world, let me interact with it. Oh, it tells me some kind of story, and it gives me hints of where to go, maybe look for the next clue, right?
Oh,
so
that's dope.
So it's actually...
Yeah, I think they're taking notes from Retail WoW, because Retail WoW has done these, like, secrets, like, for example, the Hive Mind mount or that Karazhan thing as well. And the secrets have, like, Cosimoth back in Legion. People really love those. I think people thought those were awesome. So, yeah, it's smart to put that in Classic, especially whenever Classic has, like, that same sense of, you know, world building and discovery. They were fun? Yeah, they were. They build hype.
Because we went into it knowing
Lucid Nightmare,
data mined eventually, right? And players were going to solve these and probably make an
Smoldering Drink,
but we also realized that, like, even if data mining occurred, like, if players don't go and venture out and, like, actually solve the riddles, they're probably not going to piece it together just by looking at the game files alone.
Is it, like, random? Like, if using a metaglyph, is that metaglyph found, or meta rune found
it's not like a random
everywhere
drop
in the world that one way, or is it... Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You know I am. Because that's just a simple example.
You know, that's actually good. I'll go ahead and say that rune in particular is one that there's lots of categories of how they're discoverable, and that particular one is one that is part of kind of a chain. It's like, because that's really iconic.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
a very
I can't even explain to you how I felt when I sat down.
Right.
and then logged in and
but
saw that
That
icon.
discovery isn't going to be going and looting a chest. There's a lot into that. It might span multiple zones. There's a lot to it.
Really?
And
Okay.
it's
Well,
gonna
maybe
it's going to be a minute.
So the good runes, you make them work for it.
Yeah. For
Okay.
sure.
That's
I
good.
mean, good is subjective, right? But like the ones that are like impressive, like
that
visually
surprises me. I assumed that they were going to have those be early on because they were gameplay changing.
impressive or really
Yeah, I'm
iconic,
surprised.
like those are the things that you might have to work for. But
I didn't expect
it's
that.
different. Some are chests, some are you find an NPC, you speak to them, and they may have a special interaction, and they have you do a thing. Like some of them are traditional quests. It really is very varied, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them in the 1 through 25 because
Sure.
there's so many different starting zones that we had to duplicate the runes, but we didn't necessarily duplicate the discovery method. So some zones have their own flavorful discovery methods that are flavorful to that zone and classes in that zone.
So you
Okay.
can't earn the same rune by doing different things. If yeah.
You can. There's
Is it like
some of them.
you get the rune in your bag, use it, and now it's a rune?
Yes.
Yep, you've learned it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you?
There it is.
Is it? Can you? I don't know why it matter. They're not. You can't.
I
Trade
feel
them.
like it's like rune forging for like Death Knights, where like you just learn, Fallen Crusader, or you learn Razor Ice, and like that's it.
or nothing, right?
You're solo.
So
I think that's
I'm
what- yeah,
only
that's
going to
what it
find a
is.
warlock one, so I can't go find a mage one, right? Okay.
And some of the discoveries do have a cross class element.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think it's too spoilery to say, but like there's maybe one rune where you find a dead character and you have to do like a ritual to like send their soul. To the
Sure.
Shadowlands, right?
Better be a
You need-
warlock one, right?
You need 2 healers for that, right?
Okay.
But like either healer could get their own class rune. From it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
well, that's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun, just like little Easter eggs running around trying to get them.
exactly. There's a lot of stuff like that.
And it gives you like excuses to interact with other people too.
Yeah, totally. And you're gonna see a lot of people shouting. It's like, "Hey, I found this thing. I don't know what to do. Does anybody know?" And it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, "Oh, I know." It's like, "Oh, I need a buddy for that. Can you come and help me with it?" And like that's the intent. Anyway. That's what we hope.
That's the exciting part is that people are saying
That's
like,
what I hope happens, is they build it around trying to facilitate social interactions.
if it's capped at 25, that's going to take. Is it like you didn't change? Are you changing the experience gain from 1 to 20? It's just whatever it is right now.
Yeah, it's what
That's
So that's
smart.
like super fast.
I hope
I'm like,
they're
yeah,
not
now you can
nerfing
go
it.
run around everywhere and
Yeah,
find all
yeah.
your-
I hope they're not nerfing
your
it. Make
runes.
it easier.
Yeah.
And the way we kind of built it too is like we talked in the panel about there's like a tutorial rune, right? Honestly, if you find nothing but that tutorial rune from until you hit 25, you're still going to be kind of pumping. Like,
Yeah.
Like the first paladin rune I showed was Crusader.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, that alone, like, huge
There it is.
change to the paladin level.
Yeah.
If you found nothing else until you hit 25, you'd be jamming.
I love how you obviously get the joke, right? It's because paladins suck and they can't do any damage.
Yeah.
And
So
most
true.
other classes are like that.
The crowd cheered
Oh,
so
man,
loud
ain't that
when
the
I said
truth?
Crusader Strike. I knew they'd cheer,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
didn't
See,
expect that.
And
Jeez.
the
So
first
I
was the
liked it.
taunt.
True.
Like, do it. It was like the paladins were going crazy.
Yeah, I was so startled. Yeah.
Exactly.
You find them pretty easy level, and I'll just level out and find some runes. Maybe I'll find meta right away. Just like, but drop it there for me. It's on the ground right there. She's like, check the dirt ground pile right there.
I mean, some of them are pretty, they're on the critical path, and some of them are a little off the beaten path.
Okay, about the demo tanking, was your thought like, can you main tank as a demo? Or is it supposed to be on par with like a warrior tank, paladin tank, feral druid, or is it more like off tank you're helping? I've noticed I'm holding threat easily, but like I don't, in gear.
It should be able to contend with other tanks.
So it's a tank. It's like this is gonna be a main tank.
I think if you've noticed playing the demo enough too, like if you play Horde, if you're trying to shaman tank Baron and Quantus, you might have a bad time. You're not going to have enough mana, right? Because shamans, they get a lot of their mana regen from blocking, right? So
Sure.
you got a heavy physical fight, they're your guy. But for something like Baron and Quantus, you can hit them from range with Searing Pain, and you're good, you're chilling.
Yeah.
Even if you get knocked out, you're still going to hold aggro. So
Warlock is the
that's
best
one of
then.
things that
Yeah.
we thought was cool, like still letting them keep
Warlock
some
is better
flavor,
than all of the
but
other
they're
ones.
and that's how classic is, right? Like,
Naturally.
a warrior is good for something, a bear is good for something,
And that's just
else,
how classic
bear-
is. Like, Warlock is better than every other class at everything. That's just how it is.
really pump threat with like a MCP, not manual crowd pummeler, and like a warrior is just really good at just massive
Warlocks or
sustained threat
mushrooms,
over
yes.
time, or massive brick tanking if you really need to like soak those
survivability.
unbalancing strikes and stuff like that, right? So
I like that. Are you guys? A lot of people are questioning it. Are you guys worried or thinking about level 60, the raids at 60 with the runes? With the raids already being like really, really easy
very good
without
question.
the system, and now that's going to make even everybody like more powerful. Is there like a buff to them or something?
One thing we are doing, like to the open world in general, even is we're increasing the damage output of mobs, such that like at least you should feel threatened. You shouldn't be able to pull an entire zone in Classic and be able to just tank that.
That's very good, because I think that's one of the most important things about Classic, and that's why hardcore works, is because the world is actually hard to deal with. Like, I was leveling my my Warlock yesterday. I was trying to get him out of, like, you know, Northshire at least, and I went and I did the Kelp quest for Murlocs, and I fought 2 Murlocs, and I went down to 26 health. And, like, obviously it's like, yeah, I got him. It's not a big deal, but, like, damn, that's at level 6.
And so, like, and we also thought about, like, we initially talked about, like, well, should we increase everything's HP as well?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we also don't want stuff to be like you're just sitting there.
Hitting
You want it to be more punishing rather than like just beating your head.
Yeah.
And that's
I like
really,
that.
That's really the thing about vanilla too, is that it's like it's not necessarily that stuff has a ton of health. It's just that things hit you hard, and if you pull too many, you're gonna die. And
Yeah,
that's, I mean,
it's
that's
pretty simple.
You know that from hardcore. You know that from, you know what I mean? Like, so.
Well, the other big reason why it's hard is because players don't have the same recovery mechanisms that they do later on in the game. Like, warriors don't have in original vanilla, they don't have victory rush to heal themselves. You know, you don't have some sort of, like, you know, mana return. You don't have health return or some sort of, like, self-heal. That's why the classes were so good then. Or, sorry, the world was so hard then. Is because the classes didn't have certain tools. Second Wind, the overpowered version of Second Wind only happened in Mists of Pandaria.
So that was really the focus, is like, well, let's just make things more deadly so that you're still, you know, if you're blasting, but if you pull 5 things, you're just gonna die. No getting around it.
Do you plan to change anything about the 60 raids, like mechanically wise or anything, or it's like MC's MC?
It's honestly kind of too soon to say. I think it would be pretty surprising if we didn't make some adjustments, but it's just too soon to say specifics.
I think they should probably maybe increase the health or increase the damage, but I don't want to see them add a bunch of new mechanics to Molten Core. The reason why is because classic players are stupid, and if you make it hard, they won't be able to clear the raid. Like, that's kind of what I'm worried about.
That's fair. So what's the if you can even say that, like, it's 25 and then it's going to be like 35 or 40? Is it going to, or you're going to do a couple before 60 eyes take it, right?
So I think
We're being coy. We're
Yeah.
being coy a little bit about what the next.
That's fair.
The reason I think they're being quiet is because they have no fucking idea what I think they're going to do. What they think they're going to do. They're probably waiting to see how people are going to perceive this and how they're going to respond to it, which is smart. Like, I have no problem with them saying, yeah, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, why don't we just see what you guys think, and then we'll do whatever the fuck you guys want. How about that? And, you know, just go from there. Okay. Good. Reasonable.
Level band is and what the
Acceptable.
next rate is and everything.
But you said it'd be a month, right?
No, it will be some number of weeks. We're trying to be unspecific about that. It's
Okay.
probably more than a month, less than 3 or 4 months.
That's
It'll
good.
be
Yeah.
it'll be
Yeah, that's
enough time
good.
for you to dig in. Make sure you can find all the runes. Make sure you can do the raid. Get your best in slot from the raid if you want to get it. You know, there's some discoveries that take you into the raid and things like that.
Right.
Make sure that you have the ability to do all that.
I'm more worried if it's a couple months, unless you add more to it. If it's just BFD, right? It's going to be BFD. There's the one raid in that one bracket. I think
There's-
it's-
bracket right
Yeah,
now.
okay.
Go ahead.
I think that they're probably like, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of content, but you have to remember, like, classic WoW. Like, here's a really good example. Is like, I'm probably going to get level 25 on the second day of this the second day of this game. We're going to do BFD that day. We're going to beat it probably 2 or 3 times, and then I'm going to be done. But the reason why is because I'm going to put collectively like 30 hours into that game in those 3 days. Right? Like, that's probably what's going to happen. And then, like, I'll probably play the whole thing for, like, 45 or 50 hours total. And then I'll be like, okay, now what? But, like, I had a friend text me. He recently had a kid. It's Mikkel Reevy, like, the guy I started playing WoW with, like, literally fucking 17 years ago or something like that, right? And he's like, dude, I'm excited for this because I'm going to be able to keep up. Because he has a full-time job. He actually just got promoted recently. And he also has a kid, and he has a girlfriend, and so he's very busy. So for him, this is very compelling and super interesting. He's very happy about this. So I think that's why they're spacing it out, and I think that's a good thing.
There's something,
Because the truth is, like, a lot of classic players, you know, they're 30. It's just, it is what it is, right? They're 40, they're 43.
like, if we, too far in advance, if we decide hard dates on things and just say, okay, this is going to be out for this long, we really run the risk of too short or too long.
Exactly,
right? And
yeah.
So we're trying to be really flexible.
Base it off what
especially
the
with
player
the
base
team
does.
size. We can pivot relatively quickly. And so that's why we're always, like, ear to the ground, you know, trying to figure out, like, okay, like, what feels good.
Okay, last raid question. Are they all going to be 10-man during these brackets?
40, yes, that's, bro, this guy is asking such good questions. Crix Vibes on Twitch. This is so good. I love these.
Honestly, like this is one of the cool things about kind of the power of creating content. Wow, actually, we've got very robust tools that we've built up over decades, right? And it's not terribly difficult to kind of turn the knob and say, like, oh yeah, let's start working on this as a 10 player. It's like, you know what, this would feel better as 20. Let's just crank some numbers up, and it works. So
2x
obviously
everything.
some mechanical changes and stuff, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say. I think the thing we're a little concerned about too is that the nature of Season of Discovery too is that, you know, you may level to 25, find all the runes, level an altar too, and maybe you want to just kind of take a break for a week or two. Like, we don't want to shackle you to the game. Approachability and respecting your time is a big goal here. So we don't also want to get in a situation where it's like, well, you need 40 people, and if 5 people decide they want to take a break, your raid is in trouble, right? So that was part of the reason for, like, during the level up process, smaller raid sizes kind of made sense for that.
Are the battlegrounds in at the first phase?
I want a 40-man BRD. That's just how it is. I want it. I want it to be, this is what I want it to be. I'm going to explain. So I want it to be, you know how, like, you come into the instance, right? And there's, like, the gate in front of you, and then there's the gate to the left of you. And you go to the gate to the left, and there's, like, that big golem fucker. And he's standing in front of the massive door. I want in Classic Hardcore, in Classic Plus, I want this boss to be a 40-man raid boss that's super fucking hard, that puts Ragnaros in the dirt. And if you kill him, the gate's open. And that's the new raid. That's what I want to see happen. That would be fucking nuts. God, bro, that would be so good, right? It's not going to happen? No, bro. Like, well, they said Classic wasn't going to happen. Why don't they just do it? Yeah, why don't they just do it?
Warsong Gulch will be.
Yeah. Are you going to do, like, the same thing where it'll be, like, all level 25 one only, or, like, how's the brackets going to work with it? Just the normal way?
Yeah, it'll be the normal way
Okay.
for the most part. PvP's honor system's on. People won't be able to grind out rank 14 because we're still scaling based on your level, how much honor rewards you can actually earn, right? So
That's cool.
You won't be able to get past a certain point.
Yeah, I think you can only get to, like,
and
Master
it's really
Sergeant.
good, like, I think we mentioned this in the panel, that the Ashenvale PvP event gives Warsong Gulch rep for Horde Alliance, right?
Yeah.
And there's some pretty spicy rewards there. I don't know if you noticed what like on the VOD and stuff, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
But those mount models, those are the original unarmored mount models.
Yeah, that's
for
a brilliant
Night Elf
idea.
and
That
Horde.
Ashenvale is a brilliant idea.
Oh, they're doing that. Oh, bro, I didn't think they were going to do that. Dude, I've wanted them to do that for so long. That is badass. I would be totally okay. This would be fucking badass. Imagine if they were doing Classic Plus level 60 server, and they said, if you get level 60 on hardcore self-found, you unlock, like, access to another vendor in Classic Plus that lets you buy the unarmored mounts. That would be fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get those from Warsong Gulch rep now.
That's
so very
People
cool.
them all, too
And
bad.
obviously they're only usable in Ashenvale, but they're
An actual
very-
achievement? Yeah, that'd be so
very
good.
enticing rewards for that. So we're hoping PvP.
Or they
takes
put it on
off
store for
really
$100, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hope I didn't
This
annoy
was
you
such
guys
a
with
great,
my annoying
such a great
questions.
interview.
Man.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
You guys are amazing.
Yeah, this was a great interview. I'm gonna go ahead and link you guys the guy's channel so you can make sure to give him some support. This guy's great. His name's Crix Vibes, and he did this interview. About Classic Plus and Cata today. So huge W for him. I think all of their questions and everything they asked were really good, or they answered were really good, and all that. Yeah, there's his channel right there. Make sure to give him a follow if you like the content. Yeah, super good interview. Yeah. Those are questions that I would have asked myself, or I would have at least hoped that I would have asked. So I'm very happy about that.